The CHGO White Sox Podcast, coming to you live from a rainy studio. Well, I guess the studio itself isn't rainy, but from Studio B in a rainy West Loop of Chicago. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, the full CHGO White Sox crew. That's Vinnie Duber, our CHGO White Sox beat writer. You can read his work at allchgo.com and follow him at Vinnie Duber. His latest piece just posted before today's show. Another season, another round of White Sox fans wondering why Eloy Jimenez isn't on the IL. We'll try to answer that on today's podcast. We got some Pedro Grifol sound on that answer. But you could also go read Vinnie's work at allchgo.com. The man in the middle is Herb Lawrence.
Hello.
You can follow him at EctorWall23. He's our CHGO White Sox community leader, and today's show is being presented to you by Factor. Head over to factormeals.com/CHGOSOX50 and use code CHGOSOX50 to get 50% off. That's code CHGOSOX50 at factormeals.com/CHGOSOX50 to get 50% off. Like we mentioned, Eloy Jimenez not going to the IL. We'll hear from Pedro Grifol a little bit later on. And we'll talk about the White Sox with today's game being postponed until June 27th at 3:10. The White Sox avoid a fifth starter. They don't need to call it up. It was supposed to be a bullpen game. Dominic Leone was going to be the starter, but the Sox, by the skin of their teeth, don't have to call somebody up.
They don't. And, listen, regardless of who it ends up being, we're going to get into the answer to that question or what that answer might be. But whether it is a young guy like Nick Nastrini or one of them non-roster guys from spring training like Brad Keller, or if it's the reportedly returning Mike Clevinger, all those guys have to be added to the active roster. All those guys would have to be added to the 40-man roster. So it's not necessarily insignificant what the White Sox would have to do to bring up what should be a fairly run-of-the-mill thing, their fifth starting pitcher, right? But it's that early part of the season where there's a little more off days. It's an early part of the season where there are weather-impacted games. And so perhaps the need for that fifth starter is not going to come until much later in the calendar. And in the meantime, the White Sox get an extra bullpen pitcher out of the deal. So I don't necessarily think it's a quote-unquote bad thing that the White Sox don't have a fifth starter on the roster. It's just kind of the way the schedule has worked out, and it might continue to work out that way as, Sean, you and I were looking into the future and seeing perhaps how long they can wait to get a fifth starter on the roster. It may be possible that it's not to the end of this month.
That's good. And I thought the White Sox did well today by, if they were going to play this game, having Dominic Leone and then a bullpen game for them, because as Vinny states, like, so many things have to go right. Like, you have to take somebody off the 40-man to add this player, theoretically, from the minor leagues who wouldn't be on the 40-man roster. Secondly, like, going against the Braves, I know Garrett Crochet made it look real easy last night. That's what he did is phenomenal, and we'll discuss it a little later. So don't take what he did versus the Braves and apply it to other pitchers. He's a one of one, probably. So to have anybody start versus the Braves is not an easy task, especially if it's your first start ever. So it's a good thing that, firstly, they got rained out or snowed out, and then secondly, the White Sox already had the plan that we're not going to bring a 40-man person up here because the uncertainty of the weather, the additional person we have to add, and then to do this to this person would be very unfair to that person if it was Nick Nastrini, etc. So the White Sox got away with it. I'm looking forward to this. You guys planning out the fifth starter for the White Sox. You guys sending the plan over to them?
Well, let's get over. I mean, I don't know if Vinny ended up sending it. We only just did it on the back of the media guide.
You're working on the back of the media guide, doing some quick math.
But that quick math, at least looking at the 4-game series against the Royals, Soroka, Fedde, Flexen, and then Crochet, that would take you to the end of that series on the 7th. And then on the 8th, we said that will either need to be your first time for a fifth starter against Cleveland, opening up the Guardians home opener on the 8th, or a bullpen game then. And then Soroka should have enough time on that Tuesday game to have enough of a starter's rest, and then you'd go Fetty, and then there's a day off on the 11th. I mean, do we think that you'd see a bullpen game there? I mean, they were somewhat planning on doing it today. It doesn't seem like they're afraid to do it. Would you see a bullpen day on that 8th or
a Monday afternoon game in Cleveland? That sounds ripe for a bullpen game, doesn't it? I mean, listen,
their home opener?
I don't know. We I asked Pedro today kind of what their thinking was, and he, gave kind of a general answer about saying how they have a lot of options. They're considering a lot of different ones of those options, but his answer basically boiled down to, we'll make that decision when we need to. And I think if you're talking about want versus need, the need might not come along for quite some time. I mean, you talk about just the next kind of go through the rotation. There's an off day next Thursday. There's an off day the Thursday after that. I mean, we could be looking at, one of the final games in April before they actually play enough games in a row where they would be like, okay, now we need this guy. And I think at the end of the day, it probably depends on what of those options that they go with. And really right now, is there any option that's being pointed to more clearly than Mike Clevinger, if that, once that move becomes official, which has been reported by many different sources, it really just seems like he would be the guy to plug into an empty spot. You don't sign him not to play him. Obviously, you're going to have to give him time to warm up and get up to speed, whether that's in the minor leagues or in Arizona, whatever. But if you're able to get it to the end of this month, if you're able to go another almost 2.5, 3 weeks, maybe he's ready by then. Maybe he's made 2 or 3, starts, to get himself ready. He's a veteran. He's been here before, and it would seem that maybe he would know the exact schedule he would need to get ready for a season. It wouldn't surprise me if that's the way things turn out.
And my guy Greg out in San Francisco told me that Dominic Leone has experience with opening games, of course, being out there, and he was all right. 3.5 ERA in the 5 times he's been an opener, only 4 times being an opener, only 5 1/3 innings. So he's a short opener. He's not for multiple innings necessarily in his career. So I could see that happening versus the Cleveland Guardians, especially coming off a tough series, the 4-game set out there in Kansas City. You're traveling. You would have to meet the guy out there in Cleveland. It's a lot of stuff that has to move, and like we already talked about, the 40-man is already at 40, with Mike Clevinger not added already, so you're going to have to add him eventually, and then drop another person for this supposed fifth starter.
And they would need to drop a pitcher. You have to have 13 hitters, 13 pitchers. So, I mean, at least if Clevinger was called up, it's not like you would see Sosa or J-Rod get declined or get DFA'd. It would just be one of the pitchers. I mean, Alex Spees, I know he's got stuff, capital S stuff, but it doesn't seem like you can really control it. He sent him down to Charlotte fairly early. I know Bannister likes the tread athletic guys, and he's one of them. But, does he provide enough to the Major League roster to take up a 40-man spot? I know Brian Shaw hasn't been great, and I know that pains me to say. But Brian Shaw hasn't been great. Do they look to take him out of the bullpen and see if, he could possibly make it through waivers and get to Charlotte again? But we also plotted out, with the off day on the 11th and an off day on the 18th, they might not actually need their first, fifth starter until the 23rd, 24th, if they even want to do a bullpen game on the 23rd. My biggest thing is, even with the Clevinger thing, I feel like they did it wrong. If you needed innings, and Chris Getz said, we want starting pitcher innings, and you didn't feel like the non-roster guys were enough, why not get Clevinger in camp before? And I know people are going to bring up, he had other offers and was waiting for other camps, and we see that he only signs for $3 million. Comparable pitcher, if not worse, Michael Lorenzen gets $4.5 million 2 weeks ago from the Rangers to come into camp. Like, maybe the market wasn't there, but again, that just goes back to the whole thing of, why are you signing a guy that doesn't have a market? Again, it's a head scratcher how you put it to go after Clevinger, and I think the Sox are just in a tough spot because they either need Clevinger to rush back or rush to get ready by the 23rd, and he's a guy that's been injury prone before, a guy that we saw last year, late June, and then missed most of July for the Sox. And he, I think, hasn't thrown 27 starts or more in a year since 2018. Like, he's been a guy that's been fairly banged up in his career. I don't know if it's a solid, trustworthy guy, just even from a pitching standpoint, to go out and be like, all right, go eat innings for us, because he might get to 100 if you're lucky.
I think he probably accomplishes the innings eater role more than or better than anybody else. But I think the answer to your question is in the money and is in the market, because if they wanted him to be a part of this, they would have signed him in January, right? I mean, they wanted him to be a part of this at a certain price, and they waited until his market made it so he was that price. That's at least what it seems like to me from the outside. We've seen, and that's in line with their activity all offseason, right? The spending has not been high, and in fact, it's been noticeably low from the people they've brought in on free agent deals. Even to the point where the guy who's their backup catcher, they make a trade for him and basically get the other team to eat all of the salary in order to bring him aboard. So waiting till a guy that you think is a major league caliber arm who can help your team, but is at a rock bottom price, so to speak, is in line with some of the other stuff that they've done this year. So that part, I think, is what makes sense about it in terms of how it ended up playing out. If, again, this is not official yet, but so I think that the more curious element of this is you're in a rebuilding year, and the best case scenario is you just spent $3 million to maybe turn it into a couple of prospects at the trade deadline, when you have some pitching prospects who showed you in spring training, one of them at least, they're ready for this test, or they deserve this test, we'll put it that way. So what this means for Nick Nastrini, I don't know. Obviously, there's a guy in their rotation who they signed to a major league contract in Chris Flexen, who has experience pitching out of the bullpen. If they maybe think that he's more suited to be a bullpen pitcher, we'll see. But then why spend the entire offseason telling us that he is going to be your starting pitcher and you want to give him a chance at that? So I think right now their rotation, if Clevinger is that fifth guy, looks pretty full. And maybe Nick Nastrini's opportunity is still a couple of months away.
I don't know, would we call this? I mean, just like, remember, Chris Getz, this is first offseason. So was he caught off guard with not having a fifth starter, or the fact that they traded Dylan Cease so late into the spring training kind of caught him off guard? Because remember that at the time, they were like, we got 10 people competing for this starting rotation job.
Well, but they have all these guys. Like, that's the thing. You look at Charlotte, and that's what I don't understand. You have Nastrini, who could be called up, Schuster, who made MLB starts last year. I bitched about the Brad Keller signing. He's down in Charlotte. Chad Kuhl has major league experience. Tukey was on the team last year, and your guy, Jake Woodford's down there. And, I mean, the one thing that I heard, I think it was from Future Sox, like last year the White Sox had one guy as their sixth option, and that was Davis Martin.
And the safety net got ripped out in May.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it's they're in a better spot than they were. And I don't understand the idea of going to Clevinger. I guess they finally got the right price, but again, why was that price being driven down? And that's the frustration.
Well, baseball did that. I mean, you can look around and see. I mean, you just brought up Michael Lorenzen not signing until he did. I mean, there are a lot of guys still who don't have jobs, right? Who, 5-10 years ago, it would have been no-brainers that they would have been signed in on opening day rosters, or at least in spring camps, right? So I think the way that things have evolved, and then this year's market in particular, we talked all offseason long about how every year the market is a little different. This one was a very slow developing one, and the season's going, and you've got guys who are still joining teams now. So I think that the what made him available at this point, or what made him this affordable at this point, is not a Mike Clevinger issue. It's a baseball issue altogether, I would say.
I'm just wondering, what Chris Getz really thinks of this team, because if we have all these available arms down the line, signing Mike Clevinger, whatever I feel about him, to me seems like a move for a team that is at the top of the standings. We just need this guy to push us over the top. For me, it doesn't make any sense, because I think they understand this team is not going anywhere. And so getting innings from a pitcher that is not going to be traded, because you tried to do that last year, and I know the extra year was kind of the bugaboo with every other team picking up the extra $4 million, but you had a whole offseason where no one wanted to pick him up. And so why was it, what is Chris Getz's mind about this team? Because that signing does not jibe with the team he currently has. Well, and the team he currently has is not good, not ready to compete. Right. Getting Mike Clevinger is a finishing mark. Like last year when they got him, I was like, okay, I get it. They're trying to have another starter in that rotation that is already kind of set and established. It'll be a nice full established rotation. Now this year it doesn't make any sense.
Well,
because you have other options too.
They signed him last year before the allegations too, so I mean it was a little less to swallow. I mean it was just like, oh, they think Mike Clevinger's a decent pitcher, coming off an injury with San Diego, and Katz has the prior relationship from Los Angeles, right? I think that was the whole story, or the whole back and forth, because he should be an Angel prospect with Katz, I think. So like there was a whole thought of like, oh, we know the guy, and then everything else happened after they signed him. I think they signed him in November, and then we started learning about this stuff in January, and then he spoke to the media in February. Let's take a break. We'll talk to you about our friends over at Factor and Leinenkugel, and then we got some chat questions that we want to get to. Make sure you're hitting the thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribing to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. I see you guys in the comments. If you have anything you want to say, throw it out there. I'll go to 2 questions after this. But Herb, you want to let us know about Factor?
Yeah. Eat stress-free this spring with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never-frozen meal is chef-crafted and dietitian approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including popular options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan or Veggie. Also, discover more than 60 add-ons every week, like breakfast, on-the-go lunch, snacks, and beverages to help you stay fueled and feel good all day long. What are you waiting for? Get started today and fuel up your springtime goals. Looking for gourmet meals? Try meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, truffle butter, broccolini, and asparagus. Ooh, fancy. La la la. No fuss, no mess meals. Factor meals eliminate the hassle of prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. Simply heat and savor the good stuff. Sean had one yesterday, a couple days ago here at the offices? Mm-hmm. Enjoyed it thoroughly. Would you have some risotto? Look really nice.
You're putting me on the spot. It was a capatave. It was a roasted tomato and feta capatave. Thank you for putting me on the spot.
I'm sorry.
That's Italian, baby.
Mamma mia.
That's so Italian.
This was my meal the other day.
I think that's what I had.
Oh, yeah, I had the same thing. I had the vegan box.
Look at you guys the same. That's what it looks like. Delicious. We're celebrating Earth Day all month long. Look out for Earth Month Eats badge on the menu for our lowest carbon footprint meals. Head to factormeals.com/CHGO Sox 50 and use the code CHGO Sox 50 to get 50% off. That's code CHGO Sox 50 at factormeals.com/CHGO Sox 50 to get 50% off.
Do you know what the fine folks in Wisconsin have invented now, Herb? They've invented a time machine. What? Because they're just very innovative up there north of the border. And I'll say this, the snow is falling outside. Mm-hmm. But all you got to do is grab your Leinenkugel's time machine and you get whisked away to the summertime. Oh. Because when you have one of these, it's always summer. This is a summer shandy, of course, and the fine folks at Leinenkugel's have a whole ton of other beers that you can enjoy year-round. This is the Berry Weiss. Of course, we love the Honey Weiss with its real Wisconsin honey. We love the Lakeside Cherry. We love the Sunset Wheat. But when it's shandy season in America, the world, you can go ahead and grab a case of these to do whatever you want to do to enjoy your summer. You go by the lake, you have a little picnic. You go down to the rate, you have a little tailgate. Maybe you even go up to Wisconsin, you go around in a little bit of a canoe, you do a little paddling. Summer shandy should always be coming with you. Guys, flavor life's simple moments with Leinenkugel's, the official craft beer of the Chicago White Sox. Go to Leinie.com/CHGO to find delivery options near you. That's LEINIE.com/CHGO. Or pick up Leinenkugel's pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Leinenkugel's, flavor the moment, celebrate responsibly. The Jacob Leinenkugel Brewing Company, Chippewa Falls.
Yes. And Antonio asked in the comments, can Sarah play Thunderstruck? Mainly just reading this because I think I forgot to shout out Sarah. Sarah's our producer today.
Hi.
Can you play Thunderstruck?
No, because of copyright.
Well, all right. Blame Sarah and not copyright, right? Okay, there you go. Blame Sarah.
Can you play Back in Black?
It's a good song.
I don't know what that is.
It's the same.
You don't know what that is.
It's AC/DC.
The AC/DC song Back in Black? You don't know what it is.
I'm not perfect.
Sarah.
It's okay, Sarah.
Sarah, you have homework.
Yeah, go listen to some AC/DC on the way
As my
home.
guy Brendan says, they're all the same. They all sound the same.
And they all sound great.
Aren't you going to the Vic today? Are you not going to see AC/DC?
Oh, yeah, I am. I'm seeing some, rapper guy.
I think it's AC/DC.
Rapper guy.
Yeah.
Rapper guy.
No, I don't even. I've never heard of this guy either.
He's a rapper guy.
You're going to a concert you've never heard of the
I
person?
just show up to places.
Hey, it's not a bad idea. I mean,
And I'll tell you what I'll
hang it
do.
out.
I'll have a Leinenkugel.
There you go.
Yeah.
Absolutely you will.
There you go.
Because you flavor life's simple moments.
And if,
Yes.
And if they don't sell it there at the Vic, right across the street, 1,000 Liquors.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Aren't they like 24 hours?
24 hours, yeah. I used to work at the Big City Tap, so I know. Connected.
I think liquor stores should be 24 hours. Why you close them?
People want to drink all night long.
Exactly. I think that's what Lionel Richie was singing about. And then Bennett Carroll asking, most disappointing White Sox player ever. Do you have an answer for this? Because Eloy Jimenez was mentioned as one of the biggest Chicago disappointments ever.
I get that. I mean, this is obviously it's just a radio barroom conversation. Sure. I understand. So that's fine. It doesn't actually mean anything. But I get it because of the expectations, right? The level of the expectations. But I would say that someone who's the most disappointing, should just never have done anything.
Thank you.
Right? Eloy Jimenez won a Silver Slugger one year. He's been hurt a lot, and he has not lived up to the expectations. He has not produced at the level anybody thought he would. But also, he did something. He hit some home runs. He had the Thanks Cubs game, right? I mean, that's something.
It was a part of an AL Central winning team in 2021.
Yeah, I would think you would want to pick from somebody who literally just did nothing.
I mean, literally on his team, as Leonard is talking about, I would say that Andrew Vaughn is more disappointing than Eloy Jimenez. But if we're talking about White Sox history, easy. Joe Bread and Water. Jose Paniagua. He pitched the third of an inning and gave a bunch of runs. So
and that was it?
That was it. That was his White Sox career. Flipped off either the umpire or the fans, and he got released the next day.
I was going to bring up what about Danks, but I mean, Danks had a good. That's the thing is, I mean, he had
a long career with the White Sox,
and then signed the extension, and then had his worst years then. I mean, so it's not it's not a great conversation. I'm just trying to keep you guys from drinking, even though we have the great choice of Leinenkugel. Of course, I'm going to say Andrew Benintendi. The guy has gotten paid the most in all of White Sox history, the largest free agent contract. Not his fault. I would say yes to $75 million too.
Absolutely.
But the production has not been there. I mean, I just love the John Schriffen line from yesterday. How valuable is it to have Andrew Benintendi at the top of the lineup? Herb, how valuable is it? Because I think he's the 6th or 7th least valuable when you put out the pick to click. You guys are laughing at me when I keep picking him. He's getting the most at bats. Why wouldn't I pick him?
I mean, he had that bunt.
He had that bunt. And I tried to win, but apparently no one won yesterday.
Not the people that we picked. Benintendi with his one hit wasn't the pick.
Benintendi had the game-winning run.
If anybody would have been Paul DeYoung, which no one picked, if anybody
you
would have been...
pick him, he didn't start.
That's how it works. That's how it works. I'm out of the people that we picked. Hey man, I'm partial to my Yohan Moncada 1 for 2 with a walk type of thing. But whatever.
Did he score a run?
He did not.
My guy did. So there you go. And Leonard bringing up Jeff Keppinger as well. Wolf Larson brings up Joe Borchard, but Borchard even had that massive homer,
huge home run.
He still has the longest home run in guaranteed rate history.
Does
still,
he?
I mean that's what they say. I saw Eric Chavez one that went farther. But they're like, nah, that's still his. That's still Joe Borchard.
Yeah, if it's not StatCast, I don't believe it.
Don't trust it.
We'll see. I mean, hey, maybe Joe Borchard hit it 500 feet.
That was that Kenny picking former football players period. When he's like, hey, you played football ever? Cool, you're coming on the White Sox.
You made it to the major leagues.
Mitchell, come your ass.
Yeah, I mean, they had multiple first round picks who didn't make the majors. That to me is the most disappointing, right?
But I don't know. I guess you kind of have to push because look at Major League Baseball just in general. First round picks are mostly disappointing. You look at that Madrigal draft, and that draft is horrendous. Madrigal's still
in there,
huh?
Jonathan India's in there.
Yeah, India's in there. Joey Bart just got DFA'd. I mean, Casey Mize is the number 1 overall pick, and maybe he still has some life in his arm, but I don't know. Madrigal's at least on an MLB team still. Hey, there you go. I don't know if I think guys that get paid money and then disappoint, I think that's a bigger disappointment because you were already a major league player. What happened?
Sure. The expectation level is heightened because they've done something.
And then Andrew Vaughn, too. I get the frustration and the disappointment, but also he was thrown into left field right away and played 100 minor league games. I think that he could have used a little bit more sharpening down in the down in the minor leagues.
Also, he was an above average hitter last year.
True. Yeah. I mean, you want a little bit more from first baseman, but
of course you do.
I mean, not a lot of White Sox could say that they were above average hitters last year. All right. Just to wrap up the rotation talk, Crochet, Soroka, Fetty, Flexen, Clevinger. After the 23rd, which I think is probably the safer bet on when they would call up a starting pitching 5 because of the 40-man spot, unless they do want to run a Tukey thing out. I think April 23rd is the next time they'll use a starting pitcher.
A fifth
starting pitcher. I think it could be Clevinger, but once Clevinger's up here, is that the 5? Soroka, Crochet, Fetty, Flexen, and Clevinger?
until one of them proves that they need to go elsewhere, right? I mean, I don't think you just say, sorry, guy that we gave a major league contract to, it's Nick Nestrini's turn, and then you cut him for no reason. Like, they have to have failed you in some way in order to free up a spot. That would be my thought.
Same thing, yeah. I think that you sign Clevinger just like you signed Flexen when you got a major league deal and you're going to be on the 40-man. Once this Clevinger deal is actually announced by the White Sox, he'll be on the 40-man. He'll be going down to the minors and getting his innings in, and then he'll be on this team. So, yeah, you will not be having the Nick Nestrinis of the world coming up here usurping or taking those jobs from people who are already got major league jobs and major league money.
There was a theory from James Fox of Future Sox that you saw the Jake Cousins trade to the Yankees for cash considerations on Sunday. James was hearing that the original offer for Clevinger was $2.5 million, and the assumption is that cash consideration is usually about $500K. So I don't know if that cash consideration was used to bump up the offer to Clevinger. It wasn't confirmed, but a theory that, hey, you see them trade for cash and then they sign a player. I don't know if that cash was used, but I would just be fine with signing 3 guys at $1 million rather than 1 guy at $3 million. Like, I don't understand this team that's going to go towards 100 losses. You know, maybe instead of losing 100, you lose 102 because, you know, Clevinger wins 2 more games than you expected. But, I mean, I'd rather take the depth than just, you know, spending $3 million on 1 guy.
And maybe they're thinking, and let me go there. They're thinking, hey, yeah, last year he was good, but he was mostly hurt when we could have been trading him in that time for the deadline. Yeah, he came back and made 1 start before the deadline. And yeah, people didn't pick up on him, but maybe this year with nothing really attached to him after we trade him, he'll be a little bit more successful in trading him and getting some pieces. That would be the only reasonable, logical explanation for signing Mike Clevinger to this 1-year deal for this team that is bad. Like, to flip him really quickly and thinking that last year's deal was just a really bad deal for them, him being hurt, and also him having that money attached to him, the $4 million that no one wanted to pick up, even when he was on waivers.
And then Joseph Gotti asking, Flexen could be on borrowed time. I think, it was 1 start, but Getz was pretty strong on his commitment to Flexen being a starter.
At least early in spring training, that was the case. And granted, there was a lot of spring training after that, but I just look at this team that has spent so cautiously this offseason. They're going to give guaranteed money to a guy, and you're going to be like, oh, well, you know, you're the first man off the boat if we need to free up a seat. That doesn't really make sense to me. And then I think everyone's looking at one game that he had yesterday or on Monday and saying, oh, he's terrible, he's awful, get him off the team. Like, I mean, give the guy at least a month to, you know, give him 2. But I mean, like,
first strikeout was Ronald Acuna Jr. That's pretty good.
I mean, the whole reason they signed him was because he had a bad year last year and they thought that they could turn him into something else. They made a quick decision on Michael Kopech. You don't think they might have made a quick decision on Chris Flexen if they had seen enough in spring training? It seems to me that they would give him a little bit more run than just a couple of games.
And remember, it was the Braves. It's not an easy job to do to get them out. And I think for what he did all right. It's first start of the year, and it's versus the Braves. Now, judge him after he faces the Royals and the Guardians. And then if he's the same, then you could say maybe borrowed time.
Oh, yeah. It's also not to say that, oh, it's 1 game, wait till he goes out and shoves. Like, maybe he will be bad, but, you know, you have to find that out.
But also, too, like, the White Sox paid him $1.5 million, and they're just expecting for him to probably throw 100 innings. Like, they're looking for starting pitching innings. I don't think that as long as Flexen's being efficient and as long as he's not wasting and getting into 3-2 counts and then giving up, you know, bleeding singles and drawing out long innings, as long as he's able to be efficient, and, hey, maybe he gives up a couple solo homers and it looks ugly, but as long as he's able to get to the 5th inning, I think that's what they're really looking for him to do. Anyways, let's go to a break, and then we will talk about Eloy Jimenez not going to the IL. Vinny did go to Guaranteed Rate Field today and chatted with Pedro Grifol. We'll talk a little bit more about Nick Nastrini a little bit later. I feel like we could touch upon him. We'll talk about Raylo, and also Noah Schultz has a schedule for Winston-Salem. He'll be throwing on a certain schedule, so we'll update you on that. Want to let you know, though, about our friends over at Circa Sportsbook. It is the only place I recommend for you to go and bet. They do recommend you to download other sportsbooks and compare the lines from each sportsbook, but each and every time, if not every time, you will see that the world's largest sportsbook, Circa Sportsbook, offers you the best lines to wager on. Games will strive to be a -110 split on the Circa Sports menu, unlike other sportsbooks, which may use a -115 or -120 split, and Circa is trying to take care of you by not limiting players based on their winnings. Every player has the same limits, unlike other books who do limit winning players. They are the most upfront sportsbook out there, and there are real people behind the Circa Sports brand who resolve issues in a timely fashion, unlike other books who do use chatbots. So go download the Circa Sports Illinois app, see what you're missing out on at circasports.com/Illinois-app. That's circasports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. Also be on the lookout for Circa events, watch parties, and tailgates. We have a Bears draft party presented by Circa over at Joe's on Wheat Street. It's happening on Thursday, when they have the number 1 overall pick. That should be fun. And a party on Friday as well at Joe's. So go check that out. If you or somebody you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-426-2537. Text GMB to 833-234 or visit areyourreallywinning.com. And we want to let you know about our friends over at CD1 Price Cleaners. They have low prices. Customers save over 30% on their dry cleaning bill by switching to CD1 Price Cleaners, and they have a simple, transparent service. Other cleaners charge a different price for every garment type. Plus, they have upcharges and may have you pay a different price each time you visit. At CD1 Price Cleaners, they charge one low price for any garment. You can expect the same low price for any garment that you bring in, even those pesky mustard-stained sports jerseys. And they offer a fast turnaround. CD1 Price Cleaners has your orders ready the same or next day. Other cleaners take 2 to 4 days to have your clean garments ready, and you'll get a text alert once your order is ready for pickup. And they offer a wide variety of services like dry cleaning. They'll wash and fold your laundry. They'll clean your leather and area rugs. They'll also wash those pesky blankets and comforters. So go visit chgo.cd1one.com. The link is in the description if you want to go click it there. And once you're there, you can pick from an in-store coupon or online pickup and delivery coupon options over at chgo.cdone.com. And again, the link is in the description. Thanks to CD1. All right, let's go over to Eloy Jimenez. How was visiting snowy Guaranteed Rate Field? A quiet Guaranteed Rate Field?
Yeah. I mean, the gates actually opened.
It was cool. Spencer
There
Strider.
were about 23 people in there.
Spencer Strider stuck around and signed balls, so that was cool to see.
Well, I believe he was. He went out to start throwing in the outfield, like as they called the game. So he was out there anyway. So there were a lot of Braves fans there the last few days. I think we looked it up, and it had been some time since the Braves had been at Guaranteed Rate Field. I want to say 2017. 16, 15, something like that, because I think the last 2 series they played against the Braves were both in Atlanta.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Spencer Strider, but when he doesn't face the White Sox, like I was so...
You didn't want to see what that would look like?
No.
I mean, it's honestly like him facing a Little League team.
It's but like 4 of the 5 pitchers are in even close. They got close. Who was that pitch on Monday? Charlie Morton. Like have good starts or quality starts versus the White Sox to start the season. I think the only one who really got bombed was the first guy, Kenta Maeda, or second guy, Kenta Maeda. So I was expecting him to throw a shutout. Last night, Raylo looked like he was about to throw a no-hitter versus the White Sox. His stuff was early looking good, and then he fell off. But no, I didn't want to see this White Sox outfit with the outfit they're going to put out versus Spencer Strider in this cold conditions with snowflakes coming down. So also blurring your vision towards him with his sliders, which we know we chase a bunch. No, I'm good.
But that's the thing. I mean, go look at Luis Castillo. He threw 47 straight fastballs. I think Spencer Strider could just sit there pumping 99, and it'd just be great to see if any White Sox could hit it. I don't know. I'd be down for it.
I mean, I know Luis has struggled with fastballs early, except for the Kenta Maeda ones. But, yeah, I wouldn't want to see that. I wouldn't. No, thank you.
Hey, maybe we'll see it on June 27th. Anyways, you showed up to Guaranteed Rate Field and were able to chat with Pedro Grifol. And at the end of his scrum, he was asked, why no IL stint for Eloy Jimenez?
Yeah, let me give the news from a bit earlier in that first, which is they have some confidence that he's going to play this weekend. They think that against the Royals, 4 games this weekend against the Royals. They haven't, and that's basically what Pedro said, is they haven't put him on the IL yet because they think that there's a chance he can play this weekend. They're basically evaluating him, just like it says, day to day. They're putting him through exercise and certain drills and certain work, and then they're saying, come back in tomorrow morning and tell us how you feel, and that's kind of how they're going about things right now. I know that that's frustrating to a lot of fans, Herb, yourself included, and we'll get into all of that. But I do think that later in that press conference, when Pedro was asked, why hasn't he gone on the IL yet, you probably got the best explanation yet that you've heard to that question, Herb. So pay attention to what Pedro has to say.
Well, you might say it's precautionary, but what's not out there is the how bad it really is, you know what I mean? And we have to go on what he's feeling and what our doctors are saying and what our trainers are saying, right? So if we feel that he can get back and, before the 10 days, then that's what it is. I mean, that's why we have these people. We trust our doctors, we trust our trainers, we trust our strength and conditioning guys, we trust Eloy. So if that's when everybody gets together, which we do, and that's what we come up with, and that's what we go with. It doesn't become, precautionary or, err on the side of caution. It becomes, a decision made by very qualified people, and the player. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that was Pedro Griffol's answer. So Herb, basically, Paul Sullivan asked that question and was asking Pedro, why not be more conservative? And Pedro saying, we're trusting our doctors, trainers, and Eloy. Do you like this strategy if he's going to be ready for the weekend?
It is their strategy, so I can't fault it. That is what they're going to do. I'm just going to disagree with it. I just think that there's no precedent for them showing that we did this with Eloy in 2023, and look what happened after that. Just zoom, he just went to the moon. It's always, he comes back, couple of days later, we just got to take him off his legs. He's got to rest those legs, long season type of stuff. It's then why you can rest his legs with a nice IL sit and do all the stuff you're doing right now with Eloy Jimenez, because he's not doing anything early in the season. I know it's 3 games that he only played, so it's not a lot of a sample size to give Eloy enough. But they've done this in the past to varying degrees of success. And I don't see where it's when we did this, he jumped up. Or when we employ this type of strategy, our players get more trust in us, or we do a little bit better with this. I don't understand he's talking to the doctors and the training staff, but those people right now, to me, and with the White Sox health history, are kind of suspect. They haven't been really healthy in a long, long time. And so listening to those doctors and medical professionals is better than listening to me, of course, 100%. But these guys
Dr.
have
Herb, though.
Here only on CHGO White Sox, nowhere else. I don't have accreditation anywhere else. So that it just, to me,
You don't want people showing up to your door with a broken leg or something?
Hello, everybody.
I'll fix it. I'll just here's a like they did in the oldie times, give you a bunch of brandy and put a thing in your mouth and just set the bone real quick. You're fixed. But
no, Dr. Herb would be like, that leg's coming off. Whips out the saw.
Hey, no good anymore. Sorry. They used to do that back in the day. Medicine sucked back in the day.
Yeah, it did.
But I'm a beggar. I can't be a chooser. As long as Eloy comes back this series versus the Kansas City Royals and he looks like the Eloy that we expect, or the guy that showed up in spring training, I'll eat my words and I'll say, hey, man, I was wrong. Pedro and them know how to handle their own team, so I'm going to shut the heck up. But I've seen this in the past, and I think the movie's going to play out the way it has already played out.
Yeah, I guess my thing would be let's draw some distinctions, right? There's a difference between they listened to the doctors and the player never got, performed the way he was supposed to, and,
Good point.
they listened to the doctors. To me, trusting the experts, that's what you're supposed to do. And if not just Pedro, but remember this was a thing under Tony La Russa too that you guys were unhappy with. If both those guys would have just said, "Hey, why isn't player X going on the IL with this injury right now?" and the response was, "Because that's what the doctors said." It's you can't argue with that, right? I mean, now you can also point out that this has happened with Eloy so many times that it's impossible for your opinion not to be colored in a way that is looking at Eloy and saying, well, he's just going to get hurt again, or he's not going to be up to 100%. Because even last year, when he was happy with the amount of games he played, when the only quote-unquote major injury, you'll remember he went on the injured list in the first week of the season with a hamstring, but the only major injury he suffered was not baseball-related at all, was the appendectomy. We were still watching a guy who was clearly affected in his legs, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's impossible to now separate those two things. I don't necessarily look at it as the team is handling it wrong as much as, is Eloy ever going to be healthy? And I don't even think that's Eloy's fault, as was brought up on a podcast that isn't ours, fairly and got some attention. But I think the point being that no matter whose fault it is, it keeps happening. And so you can't blame fans for being frustrated that it keeps happening. And I feel bad for Eloy. I don't think, like you've said, I don't think he's out there trying to get hurt or anything like that. But the luck has been so bad that you now can't help but expect, or anticipate that something like this will happen. And here we are 3 days in, it happens again.
The two names that you brought up, though, the frustrations of fans when the management of these injuries under Pedro Grifol and Tony La Russa. Who is Pedro Grifol's, what does he have? He's got a Tony La Russa poster above his bed, I'm pretty sure. And Tony La Russa's still there. I mean, we saw on opening day that he's in the dugout. Like, I just don't know if
Saw him today?
You saw him today? I don't know if their way that they're attacking this has changed, and I don't know if it should, just because it does keep happening, and there is so much frustration. It just feels like, are we going to do anything different? Hopefully we see Eloy, and Beefloaf brought up a great point. He's a DH. He doesn't really need his legs, so hopefully he doesn't hurt himself running to first base.
Well, he obviously does need his legs.
But the point that I was going to bring up is everyone needs their legs.
I understand what you're saying. He doesn't need to go out and play the field, but he got hurt running 3 steps out of the batter's box.
But you look at the Minnesota injury that he had in 2022, looked horrendous, awful. He's lying face down, looks like he just got shot. And then once he came back, post-return, an 895 OPS. That's the best he's ever looked. And then he played 31 games to end that season from August 30th to October 1st. In those 31 games, a 914 OPS as a DH only. So, he's shown that even with a lower half injury, he's able to produce. And we saw that he changed his stance. We didn't see any great results yet. Just hopefully they're managing this injury enough, because it was so early. It's just take all the time that you need to let him come back, because, if he's back by game 13 and he's ready to play the rest of the season, you're going to have a whole full healthy Eloy Jimenez, rather than risking it and trying to thread this needle, I feel like.
I think whether it's this year, when obviously the expectations are what they are, or the last 2 years when the expectations were much higher, it points to the fact that the alternative perhaps is not something that you would be sign him up for that. The whole next man up mentality, maybe that next man up is not very exciting. And I'm not saying that's why the team's not making a move, but I guess I'm just saying, when someone's like, why would you possibly play a man down willingly? Why would you do this? You're advocating for them to be without their cleanup hitter for a week and a half, so you can have Lenin Sosa sit on the bench. I guess I'm just saying, why is the alternative so much better that they need to do something?
It's just more protecting Eloy, because Eloy is so important. And I think, honestly, you look at the 40-man and who they could call up, it's mainly just poor 40-man management. You have J-Rod, Lenin Sosa, Zach DeLoach, and Oscar Colas. I think those are the true guys that you could call up for, to replace Eloy as a DH. Two of those guys aren't DHs, and they're just, middle infielders, and they probably wouldn't even play over Lopez, DeYoung, or Shoemake. And then Colas, if he's just a hitter, maybe they don't have to see him butcher the field, right? Even though he's been good in Charlotte so far, and DeLoach seems like he's not even better than Colas. So it's I don't know. I get that you traded for DeLoach, but does he need a 40-man spot? It was a 3-for-1 trade for a guy, Gregory Santos, who's still hurt and not throwing. Even if you just turned him into Prelander Baroa. Prelander Baroa, thank you. Maybe that trade would be all right. I don't know. I feel like it's just more poor 40-man management than actual, than taking this risk with Eloy.
I was literally going to say that. And do you see that Prelander Baroa struck out Jackson Holiday? High fastball. Down in the minor leagues.
Oh, yeah.
This is yesterday?
Yeah.
Didn't Charlotte lose that game by 7?
Probably.
We'll talk about that Charlotte game in a second. Ian saying Eloy is not really that important, Sean. That's just not true. He's their fourth hitter. He is absolutely important. This team cannot score any runs. I get your point Ian, because he says we're really timing him out there and really hoping we could bring a return in the trade. He won't. But they have all the reason in the world to A, give Eloy playing time, and B, he's extremely important because they're paying him $13 million. Like they need him to bounce back. Like they need him to play and be something, because then they're just going to cut him loose at the option, and they're just going to get nothing for Eloy Jimenez. Like at least anything, put some money into the team, and he has an all right year, and you could just pick up the option for 2025 because there's no better option, that you have.
And Ian brings up that Robbie Grossman, but there's the same problem that we talked about with the pitchers. Robbie Grossman has to be added to the 40-man, so they're not going to be doing that. And also, I get it with Eloy where people are frustrated with the player and how he continues to get hurt. But don't feign that you don't know that Eloy is pretty damn important to this team, because they see the ceiling. You're looking at the floor. The ceiling is through the roof with Eloy, and you can know that he can be disappointing. At the same time, why the White Sox would want him every day to be their designated hitter, because of what Sean just read at the end of the 22 season. He has tremendous power and a tremendous hit tool that few in this game have.
And the one thing, too, with the rebuild, it's just a flaw of the rebuild. They got Eloy Jimenez and said, that's our DH. There wasn't a backup plan. They got Yohan Moncada and said, that's our third baseman. There wasn't a backup plan.
They got Eloy Jimenez and said, that's our left fielder.
That's fair. True. But that's why you see the other podcast saying, biggest disappointment in Chicago. The same guy saying that, there was a tweet when the trade was happening on July 13th, 2017. How close were the Braves to getting Jose Quintana? Well, not very. John Heyman, White Sox wanted Acuna. Braves said no. Ryan McGuffey. And instead, White Sox get a better player anyway. So this is a guy that thinks that Eloy Jimenez should be Ronald Acuna Jr. And obviously, obviously opinions change, and it's been 7 years now, but
it's been a long time.
Yeah, right. He's not he just never was that player, and they were hoping that he would hit that 90th percentile projection of A, being able to play the field, and B, hitting 40 home runs and staying healthy. And it's just none of that's happened so far.
But don't us as fans think of when you start like Eloy started, you're going to be starting at this level, and the arrow is going to be going up with the person. And they always say it that progression and development's not linear, and his arrow has gone down and blipped up and then gone right back down. So, yeah, I don't blame fans for thinking 31 home runs, Eloy is going to be a superstar and should, by this time, be an absolute superstar. And so, yeah, being disappointed that he always gets hurt, cool. And if you think that he is not a person that is goes out hurt or is a 100%er that, can't play unless he's 100%, that's fine. And if you think he's jaking these injuries, that's fine too. But to be disappointed in the actual person or call that person a disappointment, I think is a bridge too far for getting hurt. We saw all he did is swing the bat and run out of the box, and he was hurt. What could he do there? Unless you're saying that he doesn't prepare his body right to stop these soft tissue injuries, that's part of his fault, and that's part of the training staff's fault.
Right.
Then.
I mean, this has been a guy that's been in your organization for 7 years. He's a White Sox product. I mean, he barely was a Cub product. You have had this guy in your organization. You're just not giving him the tools to stay healthy enough. And, hey, we were fooled by it. Who will lead the White Sox in homers 7 days ago? Vinnie Duber, Eloy Jimenez, 37. And if you think that's bad, Sean Anderson, 41. So, hey.
I don't know what you're.
I said 41.
I don't know what you're calling an end to that race yet. He's supposed to be back in the lineup this week.
I hope so. Hey, I would love to see it. And again, hopefully we see him elevate the ball, and hopefully we see him leave the park. And could take your victory lap. Who'd you pick?
Hey, and he's going to his favorite place this weekend.
Luis Robert Jr.
Kauffman Stadium. Oh, man, there's nothing he loves more than Kauffman Stadium.
I hope they put Jordan Lyles out there against him. Let's see how that happens. All right, let's go to some Robbie Grossman stuff real quick. He had his debut in Charlotte last night, and he went 2 for 4 with 2 home runs, 1 grand slam, and a solo shot. Robbie Grossman, you mentioned he would need to be called up and wouldn't need to take a 40-man spot. I think that one's just a little bit easier, though, because Kevin Pillar's on this roster and Gavin Sheets is on this roster. So it seems like Grossman will have an opportunity to make the White Sox roster at some point, yes?
I think that was the point.
Yeah, I would imagine you would sign him with that intent. And not only that, but if he's going to be hitting, you know what I mean? So, I mean, this is a guy I think everybody expected to get a major league contract this offseason. It's what we were talking about earlier, where the market pushed it to a place where the White Sox were like, all right, we'll spend that on that guy. And they get him, and here you go. I mean, I think Kevin Pillar is well liked in that clubhouse and is, has the... Pedro would be able to list a bunch of attributes that he likes about Kevin Pillar, so I don't think it's as easy as just saying right now, oh, well, Kevin Pillar, enjoy your time while it lasts. I mean, but I think if they were to get to a point where it's like Robbie Grossman's got to come up, why are you bringing Robbie Grossman up if you're not going to put him in the spot that is currently being occupied by Kevin Pillar, right?
Grossman is a switch hitter, and he is better against left-handers, but the one question is Sheets has an option. Like, you've already went with a back and forth with Kevin Pillar.
I think it's a different position, man.
You have a first baseman to back up Andrew Vaughn. I mean,
Braden
Shoemake.
He's huge.
Okay.
Yohan Moncada.
I know they said that, but no.
I mean, right now, I just think they play two different positions. I mean, honestly, I think that's what I was saying during the spring, and I stand by that. I mean, I don't think Gavin Sheets is here to be, an outfielder, and I don't think Kevin Pillar is here to be a big bat off the bench. I think those two players play different positions, and I think if you brought Robbie Grossman up, I think he would play a different position than Gavin Sheets. Him taking the spot of Gavin Sheets then leaves you without a big bench bat.
And I would have Robbie Grossman on this team because that's the quintessential trade chip. He does what Robbie Grossman does every year. Some team's going to come looking for him, as you said, with the switch bat, the versatility to play in multiple positions. He's a champion, just won a championship last year with the Texas Rangers. I'm sure somebody's going to be trading you some low-level prospect for Robbie Grossman. That's not going to happen in Kevin Pillar necessarily. He's pretty much a glove first only now, pretty much. And so if Kevin Pillar has to go away because Robbie Grossman is doing things, I think that's the better player anyways.
Future Brave, Robbie Grossman. They couldn't hit a lefty last night. I mean, hey. The 2021 Braves were saved by Ahmed Rosario. Here comes Robbie Grossman and Jorge Soler and Jock Peterson.
Wasn't he already a Grave too, Robbie Grossman? I think he was in his career before.
Is he like the Rich Hill of hitters? Yeah, he was. 2022. There you go. Look at your memory. You're still playing Immaculate Grid. Look at you. All right. So I think the only other thing that I wanted to bring up for sure was just some Nick Nastrini stuff. We're going to see him start in Charlotte, I believe, tonight. Justin Jersey said that he'd start tonight. I'm fine with them not rushing Nastrini up here. I wouldn't want him to pitch against the Braves. I wouldn't want him to pitch in sub-50 weather. I'm fine until the weather warms up, and if it's more of... It's less about is the player ready, and it's just more putting him in the best position. And I don't think anything about the opening season, the opening of this week with how cold it's been and the teams that you're facing. I don't think it would have been smart to call up Nastrini yet. And I think they got lucky with this rain out.
I think it's a very good point to keep bringing up that, hey, maybe they just wanted him to get more time in AAA. I mean, this guy had 4 starts there at the end of last season. Like, he didn't have a lot of experience at that level. And I think he deserved the shot by what he did in spring training. He was excellent during spring training. But if their opinion was he has more development to do before he gets his major league chance, okay, let him be in AAA and we'll focus on more of these veteran names. But I think, when it comes to bringing in Clevinger or, promoting Keller or whoever ahead of Nastrini, the idea is just, what is this season about? And if it's about learning what you got, are you going to be able to learn what you need to learn about Nick Nastrini if you're putting maybe some of these other guys in front of him?
Yeah, and I think Nastrini will be here eventually after, the trade deadline when they purge a couple of these people off of the team because of, 1-year deals like Mike Soroka. But so there's no rush to have him up on this team, but he'll get major league innings, I think, by the end of the year. And, let's see what he does tonight. I'll maybe be tuning into the game on MILB.
And it's going to be a tough lineup. We haven't seen the full lineup yet from the Norfolk Tide, but you mentioned Prelander Baroa striking out Jackson Holiday. Jackson Holiday's on the team. Kobe Mayo. You might know some of these because of the Dylan C stuff. Kobe Mayo, but also Heston Kjerstad hitting a homer last night. I think Kyle Stowers is also a big name.
This is just a major league team.
Pretty much. Hey, former White Sox Peyton Burdick is on the team as well. Revenge tour. There we go. It's going to be a tough outing there for Nick Nastrini. And I think it's good competition too. Like you mentioned, I mean, it's a fairly, near quad A to major league ready lineup. So that should be a fun watch for Nastrini versus the Norfolk Tide. All right. Only other thing I wanted to bring up was Reynaldo Lopez. His fastball was very he was really the only pitch he had last night. There was an impressive at-bat with Moncada where he threw a fastball down in the zone, then he hit the outside corner, then he went up, and then he hit the inside corner. And it was like, wow, he's really just spotting this. But we didn't see any of the secondary stuff. Did you like what you saw from old pal Raylo? Was it impressive? Do you feel like he's got a future as a starter? Was it just too wet?
It's just hard to judge because of the conditions and the team he's going against. But he looked good. Quality start for Raylo. Looked fine. I thought, he adjusted his miles per hour because he's being a starter. I think he was, sitting 94. Usually as a reliever, he was up there 97, 98. So he has to adjust his stuff. But, yeah, he didn't really have anything I was like, okay, Raylo, I see you being a starting pitcher at the top of rotation. He's fine. He'll get by, and I don't know if the Braves have anything coming up in the pike, but they have a lot of faith in him. When they signed him, like, no, we're converting you to a starter. He looked good. I think until you see him versus another team that is not as offensively challenged as the White Sox, then you say, okay, this is what the real Raylo is. If he goes against that Phillies team again, I'll see if he can handle that and see if he gets to 6 innings with only 1 run.
Well, and let's remember this too: the putting the Braves in a position to win a baseball game is a little different than putting some other teams in a position to win a baseball game. You would figure that he's going to get a lot of run support, and so maybe even if he is giving up 4 runs every time out, it ain't a bad thing, and the Braves are still winning most of those games because they're the Braves.
Absolutely. And the one thing that I did find surprising, 66% fastball for Raylo, 24% slider, and then he only threw 1 changeup. That was his 3rd pitch with the Sox. That was his 3rd pitch last year. Used it about 5% of the time, but I think he's got to use a 3rd pitch if he's going to be sitting 94, 95, like you said, and that slider isn't going to be 89, it's going to be 86. Like I was just waiting for him to throw a changeup to Gavin Sheets, and he never did. And I was like, all right, well, that kind of makes me give a little bit pause as Raylo the starter. Like maybe just let him go 2 innings and see if he can shut out the Phillies rather than going with 5. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up before we wrap up the show, James Fox of Future Sox saying the White Sox are taking an interesting approach with the top pitching prospect Noah Schultz. He will start once per week, like a typical college workload. The goal seems to be 85 to 100 innings. He will start for the Winston-Salem Dash this Saturday. Do we like this idea? I mean, Schultz is still fairly young, never went to college, and coming off Tommy. No, he wasn't. It wasn't Tommy John.
It wasn't Tommy John, but he was injured last year.
A tough one. So I think what we heard was it was a Tommy John-like rehab.
Well, they said that they were going to treat him like someone coming off of Tommy John surgery, and that innings limit, it sounds like what they're going to do. And if you're going to give a guy a college-like workload, I guess technically had Noah Schultz gone to college, that would have been the next step for him, right? So it's worked for pitchers who did go to college. We'll see if it works for Noah Schultz.
So he's the White Sox Saturday starter.
Yes, he is the White Sox Saturday starter. He's going to be close to the closest one that he'll be is in Bowling Green. So if you are close to Kentucky, you can go visit Noah Schultz, I think, on April 20th as he takes on the Bowling Green High A affiliate.
How about that? You go to Mammoth Cave National Park while you're down there. Nice weekend trip.
Ooh, look at you with the guidebook. For
is that
Bowling
another
Green.
national park?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He knows his national park.
I've been.
folks.
It's one of 2 or one of a few that I've been to twice.
So you've been spelunking.
I haven't been spelunking. But I did the one where you have to like squeeze through.
Oh no!
You didn't have to crawl. I'm not going to do the one that I have to crawl, where it's like you're getting under one that's going to collapse on you. But I've had the one where it's real narrow and you have to like squirm through it and
only,
everything.
like,
it's called Fat Man's Misery.
I was about to say
No.
because I'm like, is it only like a body length of like regular people?
Well, no, they call it Fat Man's Misery. My review was it should have been called Tall Man's Misery because I was walking around all hunched over like this the whole time too.
I see a photo. It looks more like a basement height. It doesn't seem too cramped. I mean, this buddy's wearing a huge ass hat and still is fitting under there standing up. So
Yeah, I mean, you can get in there. There's a reason they take you on that part of the tour. If you can't get in there, they're not going to take you.
Anyways,
Not even that claustrophobic, but no.
there was a write-up from Merck earlier on, I think it's spring training, where Matt Zaleski, is it Zaleski? Matt Zaleski?
Yes.
Matt Zaleski ended up saying obviously treat him towards the Tommy John rehab, shoot for 65 to 80 innings. So if he can get to 85 to 100, I think that would even be approaching or exceeding what maybe the White Sox did think. So hopefully Schultz can do that. We did have one super chat. Thank you to Adam for saying he loves us and to check him out. So appreciate Adam. Thank you for the $2 super chat. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button and make sure you are subscribing to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. Tomorrow we will have a pregame show. It will be at 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
6:10? 6 o'clock for the 6:40 game against the Royals, and then we will have a post-game show for you. It's Mike Soroka, and do we know the Royals
And
starter?
some Royals guy.
Oh, God.
It's not Brady Singer. I think he's doing game 2, so it's someone.
Okay, I should have been
Ooh, is
more
it Seth
prepared.
Lugo, maybe?
Ooh, I'm tap dance. Mike Soroka versus Seth Lugo. Look at you.
Nailed it.
Wow. And Seth Lugo, too, a guy that went from a reliever to a starter in his first outing, 6 innings of no earned runs. So let's see how the White Sox can handle that. But Soroka should be an interesting second start to his White Sox career. We'll see how he can do. Our producer today was Sarah. Thank you to Sarah for producing the show.
Her. The word you're looking for is her or she.
Yeah. My bad.
It.
That is Vinnie Duber. That is Herb Lawrence. I am Sean Anderson. You can follow him at Vinnie Duber and read his latest piece about Eloy up at allchgo.com. You can follow him at EctorWall23. You can follow me at Sean_W_Anderson. You can follow the show at CHGO_White Sox. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Goodbye.
We all silly like the mayor.